before we go on with the session, and just in continuance with what Khurram was saying, we have these sheets of question answer sheets, which Mohan would pass it along to you guys. Based on the workshop today, we have this questionnaire done. So you would have to fill these, give the answers for these questionnaire, and the lucky winners actually get 2 laptops at the end of it. Right. So you could just pass it along. Right. All right. Integrating PayPal development processes and tools. So what we are going to do now is we're going to show you, take you through the development process that you have to follow. There are, because of the compliances that you have to have in your site and the compliances that we have to do, PayPal has to go through, there is a process that you have to follow to do the development and take your applications to live. Right? So that's what we will do now. We'll go through the development processes. Sure. The first step to do is to sign up in our developer portal network, x.com, and also to sign up in our sandbox environment, developer.paypal.com, to get your sandbox accounts and developer network accounts. So these are the major first and foremost steps to actually get started on developing applications and integrating with PayPal. Right? Once you log in, once you sign up in Sandbox, you could get an application ID and API credentials. Right? These API credentials, without these credentials, you will not be able to access the APIs itself and then run them successfully. So these are the first and foremost and important steps to do first, right? And then you could design your application, build your application, right? Once you design and build your application, you have to submit it through x.com to PayPal for us to review based on a certain set of criteria as to what goods you sell, what kind of compliance you have, what are the security considerations, etc. Based on that, we would review our application. This is no means a review of the actual functionality to an in-depth functionality as to what you guys do or what your business is all about. But this is just to make sure that you are in compliance with government regulations and security considerations, right? So once your application is reviewed, PayPal, this usually takes about 4 to 5 days, this whole review, depending upon the kind of application, the size of the application, right? Well, the more simpler the apps are, the more faster the review process is. Once that is done, you will get a live app ID, application ID. With that application ID, you could go live. You could go live and start accepting payments.
Is there any user acceptance or acceptance test carried out by PayPal.com?
So the only thing that we do is we do this review. When you submit an application for review, what we expect from you is a brief description as to what your application is, a set of screenshots as to what your site is or what your application is all about, and then a couple of documents or code snippets to help us understand what kind of APIs you are using and how you are using them.
It's basically code snippets, not the test cases.
No test cases, but we do expect that if it's a site, you give us your URL so that we can go into your application at the test site so that we can visually see them and kind of make sure that it's in compliance.
Yeah, all we're making sure is that the application, the business model you guys have is legitimate.
Is legitimate.
We don't want,
As to what your application are, right? We don't need the source code as such, but we do need what kind of APIs you use and how you use them. If you can give the source code itself, it's excellent, so that we know for sure what exactly you're doing. But if you could give, if you have constraints that you can't give the source code, but at least tell us as to what kind of APIs you are using and how you are using them, right? So that we can, on some mechanism by which we can verify that.
what if I just want to write out and skip all those things?
tryout, you can't go live without the review process, right? But you can always just go through the sandbox account and keep playing in the sandbox account as long as you want. There is no restriction there.
Visible to the outside world.
The sandbox account? The sandbox no, it is not.
But you know what I recommend people is that if you have a test environment, you hook up your test environment to the sandbox account, if possible.
That's possible. That's possible.
So you can have your
That's possible.
customers come to your test account and then
Go through that. Yes, that's possible. The web services are, the sandbox account web services are, again, exposed over HTTPS. It's available for everybody and anybody to access. As long as you have a valid sandbox application ID and API credentials. Yes. Any other questions?
So we have two IDs, the sandbox ID and the live ID.
Yes, you will initially have the sandbox ID, right? But once you submit it for application review and once that is completed, you will get the live ID. You will get the live ID. PayPal will send you the live ID which you can use to host your application. No, it is always available. The sandbox, sandbox environment on your live application can reside in parallel, right? Say you had a first cut of your application done, you've taken it live, right? And then you still want more stuff to be integrated down and things like that. You can still use your sandbox IDs to keep testing, make sure your applications work and things like that. But there is a very good chance but there will have to be another review process again, just to ensure that the new functionality that you added is still legitimate. What is the review process? The review process is very simple, right? We try to understand what you guys are selling, right? What your business model is, right? Is it in compliance? Whether you are selling any illegal products, narcotics, things like that. Most of them don't. Right? Sorry.
do you give any guidelines as to what are the guidelines?
Yes, there is guidelines. There is guidelines in the x.com site as to what is an acceptable use. There is an acceptable use possible that is available in www.x.com. You could always go there and read it in detail. Sorry, if you
patch my application,
release a new version it's not going to be a very comprehensive process, right? It depends on what kind of new functionality you're putting in. If you say, hey, there is a bug that was there, I fixed it, that it might not even take half hour to get that done, review process, right? But it has to be done because we do not know what exactly you're doing. And just for us to be in compliance with regulations, we have to do that.
how do you guys come to know?
How do I?
How do you guys get to know that we have changed something or there's a functionality increase?
I think, yes, there is a very good possibility right now that you could directly go and put it in your live site, right? But we do not suggest that because you could end up losing your status in PayPal. Sorry? So we have very little control over that because once you have gone live, say for example, you went into Google Engine and deployed an application, right? And then the next time you come and do some changes and then deploy it in Google App Engine again, we wouldn't know that you have done a second deployment in Google App Engine. But we do strongly recommend that if there is a functionality change, you do go through us, right? But we can't enforce it.
So
there is no way we can enforce it.
It all comes to the part of good practice, right?
Right.
Developer, you want to make changes. You want to also understand because every country you operate has a different restriction. So it's all for your benefit as well. Because now you open this as a local product. Now there might be some change that happened in Australia that you guys don't know of. When you go through this process, people tell you, hey, by the way, you can't do this in Australia. Because at the end of the day, then you guys may be the one who might be accountable for that.
And also, like, if I have some attacks on my website,
Right.
DOS or something like that, do you
Yes. So every transaction that happens on PayPal, right, goes through, as Khurram mentioned earlier, right, it goes through a significant number of fraud filters, right. Only after crossing past these fraud filters does your transaction become successful,
No,
right?
I'm not talking
So,
about fraud, but the attacks to make your site down.
or no. See, if we do suggest that's something we have no control over, because now the site is owned by yourself and it's hosted somewhere else, that becomes a third-party thing. So we have no control and we can't put anything, and we do not offer that as well.
Yeah, just a different question about App Engine. So they have a time limit of 10 seconds for the request and the reply from third party. So
Right.
will the PayPal be able to reply within that time frame or not?
Yes, our SLAs are like 2 seconds, right? 2 to 2.5 seconds is our SLA, right?
Because when I do a normal transaction with ABN AMRO or any bank, they normally take between 20 to 30 seconds.
Yes,
SLA is that 2.5 to 3 seconds.
2.5 to 3 seconds max. Yes.
And also it differs from various other factors, so like network connectivity and all those things.
Yeah,
But those things were beyond control. Assuming that it was a normal happy day, and all that would be working.
So from your end, it would be around 2.5 seconds.
Right. So
2.5
the way I would measure is that the moment we get that request and the moment we dispatch the response, right? That would be the one that would make us.
Yeah, yeah.
The rest is all,
Is out of our control. So,
One more question. Like when I traveled to Saudi Arabia, I tried to charge my Yahoo voice account from there using my credit card, which is in India. Actually, it got rejected. So in such a case, I don't know what happened, and I couldn't charge my Yahoo voice account. So is there any? I mean, maybe that that credit card company would have treated it as a fraudulent transaction. So I couldn't charge. So for PayPal, is there any such non-things available, like when I'm traveling abroad and I'm trying to transfer some amount to some other third-party merchant?
right.
So is there any?
As long as it is a legal transaction, I don't see why it would be rejected. Right. Right.
For example, like day one, you're listening to day two, you're in Australia. So I'm talking for a transaction done in Singapore. Day two, you're doing a transaction in Australia, and day three, in US.
We'll move on into the actual development process itself. The first tool, right, that is going to be very, very helpful to you guys when you develop your application is this PayPal X Developer Network. Get signed on it, because this has all the information you need to get started on developing your application. This has sample codes, this has SDKs, this has forums, blogs, videos, whatnot, everything, all documentation, everything. You need to get started on coding and integrating with application. If you do get into any problems or anything, there are forums. Please, you could use the forums as well to pose your questions and get your answers. So this is your most important tool that you should know of, the PayPal X Developer Network. Get signed on it, right? So you have dev tools, and you have documentation on payment processing basics, PCI, fraud compliance, etc., etc. Also an overview on PayPal products and overview, right? On DevTools, you will obviously see a lot of, okay, this is slightly this thing, but I'm going to read it out. You have the complete documentation available of all the products, everything. You have the SDKs. We right now have SDKs in Java, .NET, and PHP. You could download these SDKs for you to easily integrate. Today, I'm going to show you Java SDK and probably build something that I can show you to demonstrate how easy it is to integrate with PayPal, right? And then this also has a lot of code samples and training on startup accelerated programs, right? So this is the actual site on which x.com community PPX SDKs is where all our SDKs are, sample codes are. You could download them to see them. All these source code are available to you. You can browse, do anything with it. You can even change it if you have to to make your an integration successful, right? That's it. And then there are also sample applications that are already built and published in the site. You could log in and download these sample applications, run it on your mobile or on your local thing to see how they work, right? Spaces. Okay. So the X Spaces is where we host all of our blogs and forums, right? So right now there are like 7 categories in which the blogs and the videos are published. You could go, say, if you're going and developing a mobile application, mobile blogs are more appropriate. You find your most appropriate blog and then find your answers for that. Okay. All right. So this is the foremost important tool that you're going to get to actually start integrating with PayPal.
Take advantage of these guys. I mean, there's so much information. It's
Right.
free. You're not really losing any money. You know, the sandbox account is absolutely free. Take advantage of that. So the whole
Right.
question about these APIs is that how can we help a developer like you guys monetize or become rich, to be honest? I mean, so as I mentioned, PayPal's going to make money once the payment goes, so that's not a right proposition for us. It's like how you guys can take your talent out of the street and become rich, not dependent on any normal way of, and if you look at all these success stories that you have on X.com, these are people like us, like developers, who work for a company, who actually just, started this project on the weekend, and they just want $100,000.
So that's the X.com developer network where you can get all the information that you need, right? But actually getting into the real thing, the next most important thing is the developer.paypal.com, right? This is the sandbox environment. The first thing you need to do is to go and sign up for a developer account in developer.paypal.com. I already have an account. I'm going to use that account to log in and show you guys the various things that you can do in here.
Is the X.com account and this account the same?
Right now, it's not same. Right now, both are different accounts, but we are working very hard to make it the same.
I have to register twice.
Yes, you have to register twice. Right now. But that's going to go away soon as well.
But you can use one email ID for both.
Yes, you can use the same email ID, but you'll have to register twice.
Why do you want to make both the platforms same? Because I understand that you are using Sandbox for this session, right?
Yes.
Why do you want to club them both?
Why do you?
Sorry, are you thinking X.com is production side? X.com is not production, it's just information, right, where you can download SDKs.
It's a developer portal. It's a developer portal, right? X.com is developer portal where we host all materials, blogs, forums, everything that is needed to help developers to get started and go live with their applications, right? Now, once I get into the details, you will probably find the difference, right? All right. So once you sign up and you can log in into this thing, right? So if you want to build say a merchandise, a merchant store, a store or something like that, you need to have a buyer and a merchant accounts as well, right? This developer.paypal.com allows you to create those accounts, right? Right now I have a lot of accounts here, right? These are accounts that when I played around, I had created, right? You see a lot of these accounts are just personal accounts, right? And then there is one account called business account, which is a verified account, right? So this is the merchant account that I use, right? But there are a lot of other accounts which are personal accounts where you can just, yes. The only difference between the merchant account and the personal account is that You have to have a merchant account to actually get the API credentials. You create a merchant account, right? Once you create the merchant account and go into, and how to create this merchant account. If you have to create a merchant account, you can go into this create account pre-configured, right? Right. So you can enter the country, add card, and then you would do that. That's it. A pre-configured. And yes, these are by default it is a buyer account, right? So buyer account is a personal account kind of a thing. But what you want is a seller account. Seller is a merchant account, right? So you are selling items, so you're the merchant. So if you come and click seller and then create the account, you got a merchant account, right? The moment you have the merchant account, you can get the API credentials, right? So you have the API credentials. Now it's going to show up. So my API credentials are here. I'm not supposed to show it, but still, this is for demo purpose, right? So, so I have a test account. I have an API username, right? An API password and a token, right? A signature token, right? So you take these three information is very vital to access any of the APIs in our sandbox, right? And when you do create accounts in this environment, right? Obviously, you are giving an email ID to create a seller account or a buyer account, right? The actual emails that get generated, whether it's a welcome to PayPal thing or a payment has happened to a certain party kind of a thing, all these emails come into this email box, right? The actual email doesn't get sent to it is not sent to your actual email. Say, for example, you used your Yahoo email or Gmail email. The actual email doesn't go there. This is only in the sandbox environment. In the sandbox environment, you have a test email tab over here, and that's where all your emails come in, right? So you could verify whether your a pay request got completed, a create account got completed, etc. So all these emails are going to come in here. All right. Okay. All right. So once you have created these accounts in Sandbox in the developer side, right? So these actual Sandbox accounts are actually hosted in sandbox.paypal.com, right? Sorry, did anyone ask a question? Okay. So all these accounts are actually hosted in sandbox.paypal.com, right? So you go to sandbox.paypal.com. I have a personal account named uexchange3@gmail.com. So okay. All right. There was one person who was asking what's the difference between developer.paypal.com and x.com. I hope that it's already answered. Okay. All right. This will be up in a minute. Yes.
I wanted to create a new sandbox account, and it doesn't allow me the country as India. India supporting sandbox, so you can either create a United States account or a UK account. It will be supporting
At gmail.com, right? If you see there has been somebody has sent a payment into it, you could go into this to actually see. You could add funds, withdraw history, and etc. So you could play around with this, and then whenever a transaction, when you do do test your application in your test environment, you could come here and see whether transactions are happening well and whether the actual test users that you created are either credited with money or debited with money, depending upon the kind of transactions that you do. Okay.
So those details, can't those details be invoked from our application too?
These details, right? The transaction details we can send a notification to you, right? There is something called IPN. IPN is instant payment notification, right? Whenever a payment happens, even in the test environment, whenever the payment happens, what we could do is you give us a URL, right, on which a notification has to be sent. Then we send the data about a payment that happens, or a withdrawal that happened, or a refund that happened. Whatever happens to a specific account, we could send that information to you, to that URL that you give us as an instant payment notification. From that point on, you get that information. Using that, you could do your reporting, anything that you want to do with that.
So we have transaction search API which you can use to find the details about the transaction and then of a transaction ID. So whatever transactions which you receive, like you contain a transaction ID.
And our sandbox environments on developer.paypal.com. These three go together, right, so that you can develop your applications, to develop your applications, right? So our adaptive API basics, all our adaptive payments and account APIs are all web services. So any language through which you can invoke a web service, you can use to talk to us, right? There is no restriction on what application platform you use. You could use any application platform that you want to use, right? Our sandbox URLs, if you have to invoke a web service, right? There is a sandbox URL, right? These are all available in x.com. I've just put it here, but you could always go to x.com, download the documentation, and get these details as well, right? Our live web services run at https://svcs.paypal.com. The data bindings that we support for the web services are SOAP, NVP. NVP stands for name value pairs, and XML and JSON over RPC. So these are the data bindings that we support right now. To invoke our APIs, right, you need to ensure that your HTTP request headers are set up appropriately, right, so that we know who you are, right? What is the who is the developer that is actually invoking our APIs? So you have, I hope you remember, you would have gotten once you have created a merchant account in developer.sandbox.com, you would have gotten all this information: user ID, password, and the signature. Using those, you set these are the keys, right? That needs to be set up in your HTTP headers, right? If you did not want to use SOAP and wanted to use one of the other data bindings, NV, XML, or JSON, you add an extra header in your request, XPayPal request data format and response data format, so that we know what data format in which you are expecting the data.
All this is name value.
Sorry?
All this will be sent in the form of name value.
Well, if you had set the request data format in name value pair, that means that we are expecting you to send us a name value pair. Sorry?
How secure is that?
It's over HTTPS. It's over HTTPS. Yeah, all web service calls are over HTTPS. So we use a 512-bit encryption. So I think that sounds, that answers your question.
You got to remember the request that you send, you're not sending any sensitive information.
Sensitive.
Card, or all you're doing is an email and an amount that needs to go to the email. The actual approval happens on PayPal. So there's a listener who's sitting here listening. I find it out with the encryption call, but
Yeah.
The only sensitive information that I think is the password here, the security password which we sent.
Right.
the API calls.
Yes, API, but this is a 3-token model, right? Yes, all the three are verified in tandem, in sync, right? So all the three has to go together well. Then the signatures are provided by us. It is already encrypted. And then we use a very, very high level of bit encryption on HTTPS. I mean, we also hope that when you send it, right, you encrypt with the same level of encryption on your end, right, so that we can do that.
You just mentioned that we don't send any certain information over the network. But I believe when we are making a call, like we already mentioned, making an account for a user through a call.
Right.
Then you would send things like credit card number and all those things.
Yes, when you invoke an API like add a funding source or add a bank thing, yes, you would have to send the bank name on the appropriate details.
Also we are relying on HTTPS only.
Yes, no, you cannot communicate with HTTP to PayPal. You can.
I'm looking for something stronger than HTTPS. Do we need something, or is it good enough, or how does it go?
At this point in time, we think on our end we support HTTPS, but when you encrypt, right, it falls on your ability to encrypt it to the level you can, right? But beyond that, at this point in time, I don't think we have any security layers built, right? The only security build that we have is the HTTPS, right?
It's all secure. The reason I say that is how many of you know how much money flows to our system?
Billions?
What?
Billions?
It's a broad term. If you guys have like a random number, how much money flows to our system? 150 billion. 150 billion. No, so it better be secure.
Right.
Otherwise, I won't.
It's highly secure. Right. All right. So that's about the data format. And then for in Sandbox, you obviously will have an application ID. For Sandbox, we have a test applications ID that you can get from x.com. I'll share that if you guys need it. And then the request body contains the actual data, right? Whether it's create account request or a pay request or a pre-approval request, what it is, the data resides inside the. This is an example of a SOAP API, a request, right? This request is what it's saying is that, hey, it understands an error language in EN_US. It sends some details about the client itself, what IP address from which the actual API is getting invoked, a device ID, something. This is usually used for mobile devices, right? When you have this mobile device ID in there that you could send. Right? The application ID is the ID that you get in the sandbox. The action type is what exact action needs to be taken on pay, right? There are multiple actions that can be taken on paying, right? One is you could create a pay request, right? And then you could allow the sender to actually come into our site and approve that pay request, right? That is one model, right? The other model is you could have a pre-approval key from the user itself, right? Use that pre-approval key and send a and after you get that pre-approval key, you could say execute the payment. In that case, once you execute the payment, the actual money transfer happens, right? So at this point in time, a request gets created, right? But once it's authorized by the sender, then the actual transaction happens, right?
Which currency do you mention? The originators or the recipients?
Right.
Define the currency, which currency you want to spend. And let's assume that you have an account which does not take this currency. Okay. Possibly, right? So you would get the money, but you can put a restriction that, hey, you know what, if it's not one of these 10 currencies that I support, ask me if I want to accept it because you might be paying conversion. So you can set up that, so the money's going to go hit your system, come back and say, hey, you know.
Okay. Here you have pre-approval key, and then you add the list of receivers that you want to send money to, right? You have a receiver, an amount of 100, and email to the person to whom the thing needs to be sent to. And then who actually sends that money, right? That's all the whole thing is. Right? There is this concept called return URL, right? In cases where you do this from in web flow, right? The return URL is used to actually redirect the user to a specific page on the merchant side, right? But during API calls, it's not of much use. It can happen in acknowledgement, whether it's a success, an error, or a warning, right? A correlation ID, this correlation ID is used by us to track this across various systems, right? We have a significant number of layers in our systems to track a particular transaction, whether it was in case the transaction failed, then we need to correlate across multiple layers to find out where exactly something went wrong. So that's your correlation ID. If you, it's better to have this in your somewhere so that you can give that to our customers representative if there is a problem to track and find out what it is. And then what you get in response is a pay-key, most important thing, and then the payment execution status. So what you see here is a created. What it means is that it has been created, but it has not actually been executed, right? But there is the obvious next step is to execute the payment, right? Using the pay-key, then the actual money gets transferred from the sender to the.
Do you have an example of failure?
For yes,
example of failure.
Failure message. I might not have one handy, but if I have, let me look for that.
Should be an X.com, I think. The failure error codes.
Exactly. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, yeah. I think
Failure. Oh, you need the documentation, or
No.
you need an
I'm looking
example
for
of.
the kind of response that I receive when something goes wrong.
Yeah, so
Okay.
there's an API guide on X.com which
Okay.
has all the error codes with their messages.
Yes.
Yeah.
One more thing, is there any asynchronous update that would be provided from PayPal for this? Say, for example, this is created, at some point in time it will be actually been, the actual settlement takes place, right?
No, it's instant, right? So it depends on the funding source logic, right? Let's say the sender chose to use his PayPal floating balance or a credit card. That payment is instant. So
Okay.
the person, when he leaves PayPal site and come back to you guys, you're going to get a confirmation that the money is done. You will see money in your account.
Okay.
Now let's assume that he uses, e-check. Then you will get a status successful, but it will say pending because that e-check will need 2 days to clear. So it's purely up to the sender, what he wants to use. If he uses e-check, then obviously, it will be.
Yeah, in that case, when it is getting cleared,
Yeah.
at that instance, will I get an asynchronous update, or will I again have to poll and check whether that payment has been
I think
completed?
there's an IPN that gets sent out, right?
There is an IPM. There is an
Gets sent
IPM.
out as soon as that is settled.
Okay.
As soon as it's settled, as well, we can send it.
So that means the details will be sent to the mobile phone, right? As SMS or.
Or it's
No.
an HTTPS URL, so you will post that notification on that, whatever URL you guys provide.
Okay.
The request.
So IPN is an invocation from PayPal on your side, right? Say for example, a payment happened or a settlement happened, and for that you want to know when exactly that settlement happened, whether the settlement was successful, what happened with it. In those cases, you would actually give us an URL, right? That you can go and set it up in the.
So that you will call back.
Down we will call it. Right?
So I can run a program on that port and that URL
And then
to receive that.
you just set up the URL in our side, and then we will call.
Yeah, but on your call, I should do something about
Yes,
it.
you should do. Yes, absolutely. You should do something about it. Absolutely. Yes, you should either put it for.
I should have something running to receive that.
Right. So these are some examples for non-SOAP as well, right? As to how your name value pair request looks, an XML request looks, or a JSON request would look, right? It's pretty much the same data but a different format, right?
First, you're calling the adaptive API or the payment API to do a verification,
Or verification in the sense.
you successfully return back
Right.
from the API.
Uh-huh.
Is that like verification done the background check that okay, the accounts exist and I can carry forward?
Absolutely. If an account doesn't exist, your creator wouldn't have been successful in the first place. It would have came back and said invalid account.
So you basically check and then you make the payment.
Yes, we check and then we make.
I have a question about the recurring billing solutions provided by PayPal.
Okay.
Right now we have a few membership applications
Right.
around with a couple of thousand members, and
Right.
we bill them each month using your the buttons that you provide. Like we have
Right.
generated form codes, and we have that in our application.
Right.
So does X.com, what I see from the API payment API, they just have the pay parallel and only four or five options. I mean,
Right.
do you have any recurring billing solutions?
Yes, there is a recurring billing solution, but it's a separate product suite.
Not as a
Right.
part of.
It's not adaptive payments. Right?
But is adaptive payments, you can use the
Pre-approval to do recurring billing. Right? There is a way to do
the
recurring
only
billing.
has to be within the application or
invoking those payments at a designated time, yes.
Right. Right.
So let's say you have 5th of every month, your payment is due, right? So we rely on you to make those calls on 5th of every month. You can set up the agreement with the sender, yes.
yeah, but that will be an overhead on the my application. Right now, PayPal does it for me. Then why should I move to what is the value added moving to X.com?
The big value added moving to X.com is that some payments are not in the fixed amount.
No, but for a membership site, the membership prices are fixed. I mean, they are predefined when the member signs up.
Yeah, so let's say if it's a monthly subscription fixed amount, then yes, I do understand your point. Now the pre-approval 2.0 that's coming out would have automation piece, which will still, you can decide you want to use automated PayPal mechanism or you want to take the control. A lot of these use cases that we have, it's a variable amount. It keeps changing every month. It could be a utility bill, right? You don't know if it's going to be $100 a month. It could be 80 or 120. So that's why we have that logic residing on that.
Okay.
Can I host applications on two different sites and use the same app?
Can you use Can you use? Is it allowed?
I didn't get the question. What was that?
He wants to host two applications, right, and use the same app ID.
I get an app ID for a single application as well. I can send the app ID.
Are you saying that these two applications are exactly the same in functionality, or they are different?
Same.
Same
Like a
functionality.
mirror kind of thing?
If it's the same functionality, I don't see a problem. But these are two different
Do you
functionalities.
verify against the site for a single app ID?
Do we
Against
against?
the person.
I don't think we do. I don't think we do. Right. But the only thing that we check for right now is your user ID, password, and the signature. That's what we do.
Param,
Yeah.
is there any official documentation? I mean, we can take this offline on iGo just out of interest.
Yeah, so X.com, when you go to X.com, there's a section which talks about documentation. I think you can
No,
show it.
about iGo, IGOR, the fraud protection model
Uh,
that PayPal uses. I mean, we can take it offline if you don't want to speak.
no, it's not. It's nothing that I would worry speaking about. I'm just trying to think that what documentation of IBOR we can share. I'm sure that there might be some way we can get that.
Just
documentation
of
of yeah. Why not?
Yeah. Sure.
You're sync up with me off
Yeah.
class. We can.
Yes, I would suggest you do that.
Actually, we
Yeah, it's great for lunch.
right because we already got some
Yeah.
indications as
So
well.
how far are you?
So how far are we? We have almost done with actually going to what these adaptive APIs are and how to invoke and things like that. The next portion is to actually build something and show you guys as to how easy it is to use these adaptive APIs, right, in your websites, right? So the next session is I could show you how to set up your SDK, the Java SDK on NetBeans platform.
So guys.